Carmen Gentile joins us now. He's an American journalist, author, and founder of Post-Industrial Media. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Let's first talk about the U.S. gun laws compared to other countries. For example, in Japan, recently in the news, the assassination of its former prime minister, Abe Shinzo, was a rare death from gun violence. Japan has some of the strictest gun control laws in the world and lowest death rates caused by firearms. So what can the U.S. learn from other countries that clearly don't have the same issue we face?
Well, obviously, the issue of mental illness is pervasive throughout humanity. This is not an American problem. It's not a Japanese problem, European, etc. The problem is America is awash with firearms. There are more firearms in America than there are Americans. 400 million plus is the best estimate because we don't really know exactly how many firearms there are in America. But that is an awful lot of weapons to be floating around, especially when you have people that have suffered some kind of mental illness. Now, that's also not fair to stigmatize the mentally ill because often is the case, they're not ones to become violent. The vast majority of people who suffer some kind of mental illness aren't violent, but guns are available. Somebody's feeling a certain kind of sadness or depression, or they feel as though there's no other answer in life, they might be more inclined to pick up a weapon. And when their weapons are readily available, as in the case with Robert Crimo in the Highland Park shooting, weapons made available because his father signed a document for it to allow him to have them before he was even old enough to get them on his own. I mean, of course, something like this is going to happen. And we don't see that kind of thing happen in Japan readily because they don't have ready access to firearms. The gun that killed the former prime minister was a homemade weapon, or what we call in America a shadow gun. And it's exceedingly rare for something like this to happen there, which is why it's so shocking. But unfortunately, it's not shocking in America anymore. We've lost the capacity to be shocked by these horrific and avoidable deaths just because we're so obsessed with having our guns.
You mentioned the Highland Park shooting. The suspect had used online platforms like Discord that trafficked in violent content despite rules meant to limit such material. So, you know, we usually find out after a tragedy about these mass murderers and their twisted views. Is there a way then to better police these platforms?
There is. For example, the state of Illinois has some very strict red flag laws. Now, red flag laws are laws aimed at preventing people, certain types of people who have exhibited certain types of alarming or problematic behavior from getting firearms. And Illinois has these laws. However, they need to be enforced. And if they're not being enforced at the local level, be it with police officers or local officials, then people like Robert Crimo and others who have committed these atrocities in recent weeks and months are going to be able to obtain firearms. I mean, laws are only as good as the people who enforce them. And if they're not being enforced for whatever reason, be it lack of personnel or a lack of political will to enforce a law that keeps dangerous weapons out of the hands of dangerous people, then what good are they?
I want to get your thoughts on the Supreme Court ruling striking down New York's concealed carry laws. What could the implications be, the ripple effects here? Could this galvanize a push for more relaxed gun laws in other states?
It already has. The state of Maryland, for example, has just relaxed their gun laws. Now, Baltimore has some of the highest violence rates per capita of any city in America. They have hundreds of murders every single year, most of them by guns. And there's gun violence is awash in certain Baltimore neighborhoods every single day. At least one person a day dies in Baltimore of a gunshot. Now, why would there be a relaxing of gun permit carry or ownership laws in that state when even the police, who tend to be of a more conservative nature politically, don't want to have these laws on the books, don't want people to have an easier access to weapons that makes their lives more difficult, their jobs more dangerous, make it less likely that they're going to go home to their families at night? It doesn't make any sense. It's a political pawn for certain politicians to, appeal to their base to say freedom at all costs, no matter what. And, a society can't operate that way. I mean, we're clearly failing in America to protect our most valuable assets, our children and the innocents, from gun violence in our public spaces. If you can't go to a 4th of July Day parade on a Monday morning, where can you go?
Just real quick here, 30 seconds, because we're running out of time. What would you say to the gun owner right now who's watching this interview and saying, hey, I'm not the criminal. I didn't commit a mass shooting. I'm doing what a responsible gun owner should do. Why are you trying to limit my access to firearms?
I'm not trying to limit your access to firearms per se. Now, on a personal note, I've spent a lot of time in my career covering conflict. I've seen a lot of weaponry. I'm tired of it, frankly. Personally, I wish there were far fewer weapons on the streets in America. I wish far fewer people had weapons, but that's my opinion. It's not what I perceive to be law or what should be law. I would say to that gun owner to lobby the NRA or to lobby your lawmaker to, in fact, make the law to enforce these red flag laws so that people like yourself who are responsible gun owners aren't cast in the same lot as those who have been irresponsible, who are harming people. It's up to you as a responsible gun owner to take responsibility not only for your weapon, but for this overzealous weapon obsession culture that we have, and tell your lawmakers that the law should be stricter for gun ownership.
We'll leave it there. Carmen Gentile, founder of Post Industrial Media. We appreciate you coming on the show.